Hey folks, it's Tim Hower. I'm joined again this week by Assistant Sports Editor Alex Riley. We're going to talk about 5 games, just like we did last week. And we'll get started right away with the game that I'll be covering this week, 71st at Hoggard. The Vikings really need a better performance this week than they had last week, especially on the defensive end. Gave up over 370 rushing yards to one Holly Springs running back. 71st loves to pound the ball. And so Hoggard's going to see a heavy dose of the ground game again. It'll be interesting. I talked to Craig Underwood earlier this week, and he was definitely frustrated with that side of the ball. He said that they were going to put a lot of emphasis this week on tackling in space. It'll be interesting to see how Hoggard fares this week.
Yeah, like you said in the story, which is a great story, by the way, Hoggard's obviously built its reputation on defense, with Scott Braswell being a defensive guy when he was there. That's kind of what their mantra has been for so long. And for them to give up 370-something yards to one guy, that's not something they do. So it'll be interesting to see how they rebound this week against a really good team. It could be their first 0-2 start since 2010. I mean, that's unheard of at Hoggard. So it'll be interesting to see how they rebound this week.
Yeah. Second game this week, Ashley is finally going to get to play a game. They tried to go up to White Oak last week. It was nasty storms up there in Jacksonville. They couldn't get that game in. Jeff Turner didn't want some of his JV guys to play on Monday, Thursday, and Friday this week. So they just went ahead and canceled that game. So Ashley's season opener will be at home this week against Swansboro, a team that they've never beat in 3 matchups. Swansboro's won all 3. I think this is probably the best Ashley team that's faced a Swansboro team. They look pretty good at the Jamboree. I thought Jacob Reed, the quarterback, looked really good. Bradley Plyler is a serviceable running back. So they're going to play well on defense. I think this is a game that Ashley could steal.
Yeah, it's quite a possibility. You would feel a lot better about them this week if they had actually gone out and played last week, because then you'd know what they look like against live competition other than the Jamboree. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they mentally refocus to say, okay, now it's the season opener. How did they handle that last week? And, if that defense can come up with some stops and that offense can get rolling, you're right, they could come up with a win this week. But it's going to be interesting to see how they handle not being able to play last week.
A very intriguing matchup for me. New Hanover travels down to Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach had a really impressive win last week over Burns. The power out of South Carolina. You hear about South Carolina teams, you always hear about Burns. I think they were up 28-0 at one point in the game. Ended up winning pretty handily. So obviously Myrtle Beach is a very talented team. New Hanover struggled a little bit early last week against Hope County. They got it rolling as the game went along and won that game pretty convincingly too. So this will be a good test for New Hanover to really see how good they are or what things they still need to work on.
Yeah, like you said, beating Burns is not easy. If you follow high school football on the national scene at all, Burns is a power. I mean, all you got to do is say Marcus Lattimore. That's just one player, and there's plenty more of them that have gone D1 and on to the professional level. So for them to have beaten that team, to beaten them so well, and now to be New Hanover's opponent, this is going to be a great measuring stick, win or lose for New Hanover. If they're in that game at the end, come out with a way to win, then maybe they are as good as we think they might be. If they get beaten, maybe they've got some work to do. But it's going to be interesting to see how they match up with those good South Carolina teams, and this is a great test for them early in the season.
Topsail and Pender is another intriguing matchup. We probably didn't really think that it was going to be an intriguing matchup coming into the season, but Topsail, surprising loss to Trask last week. And so they definitely want to bounce back. They haven't lost to both Topsail and Trask in a while, so they don't want to do that. You don't want to go 0-2 in Pender County. They're rivalry games, and Topsail's really going to want a bounce-back performance. I think that they've really got to give the ball to DJ Montana this week. I think he had less than 20 carries last week. He's got to have 25 to 30 carries this week, and just try to wear down that Pender defensive line, because those guys are going both ways.
Yeah, Pender's obviously one of the smaller schools in Pender County, and for Topsail to be kind of the flagship school of Pender County, to be the big 3A school, for them to have lost to Trask last week, And if they come out and play poorly against Pender, that is a really bad sign for the season. I mean, you hate to say that this early on, but it just doesn't look good. We all knew that Trask was going to be a little bit better. Did we know they were going to be good enough to beat Topsail? I don't think so, but they're obviously improved. It's going to be interesting to see how Pender looks, though. They had their bye week last week. So that means they got a long stretch of playing, and this is their first one. It's a rivalry game, like you said, so it's going to be interesting to see how they react, just like Ashley, but in a different situation. So, if Pender comes out and plays well, who knows what can happen in this one. I mean, you got a team that's down in Topsail. Do they rebound or do they stay down? That's going to be the key for this matchup.
Exactly. And the last matchup that we're going to talk about is the game that you're going to be heading up to, South Robinson at Trask. Trask could realistically start the season 2-0.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that anybody really thought that was a possibility entering the year, but like you said, they played really well last week in a game that stretched over 2 days against Topsail. They were up 2-0 when the game got delayed. Topsail came out and put up 15 points in a row, and then Trask came back in the fourth quarter and got a pair of rushing touchdowns from the Jordans to seal that win. So, great start for Trask, and that they want to build on that momentum and beat a team that they pretty much handled last year.
Yeah, and to start 2-0, I mean, Jonathan Taylor has talked so much about, building this team and changing the mentality, changing the culture at Trask, because it's been down for so long. I mean, basically since the school was formed, it's been down. They've just never had the numbers, they've never had the skill, but now all of a sudden I think he's got those kids believing. You get a win over your Pender County rival to start the season, then you're playing a team now that you beat last year. That's got to build some confidence. That is going to be huge for Trask. Now, they're in a conference in the 4-county where, against the Wallaces and the East Bladens and the Clintons of the world, they are not going to contend with those teams, most likely. But if you could build some confidence right now and then win some of those games against the Midways and the teams like that in the middle of the league, all of a sudden you're putting yourself in contention for a playoff spot, beat a low seed or not. That's a great thing for this program, and they really need it. So it's going to be interesting to see how they come out this week. Do they ride that momentum to another win, or do they let it go to their heads and think they're better than they are? I think they come out and they ride it to another win, start off 2-0, and get a really great season going.
I agree. Well, thanks. We appreciate it. And be sure to follow us on Friday night on Twitter, Instagram, and make sure you pick up a copy of Friday's paper. We've got the tailgate, which features a story about Hoggard's defense, some stats, some standings, and some capsules on the games that we just talked about. Thanks so much.